Thank you very much, Admiral Jha, and thank you very much, General Chandele, for inviting me to this very great gathering of very eminent persons who are interested in this subject. I'll try to dumb down this subject a bit, so because I'll try to link the technology and the operational domain. I mean, that is what I've been possibly the charter which has been given to me, and to that extent, I think let me try to develop the theme, which has already been so well covered by the speakers who are preceding to me. So I have also the advantage that I can really focus on certain issues which have not been covered so far. The quote goes, the earth-centered inertial frame isn't inertial, but it's close enough. So you have a situation where, as Admiral brought out, you have a situation where the geographical coordinates which are available to one agency are not compatible with the agency of another. So I mean, this is a situation where the inertial framework isn't inertial, but it's just close enough. It's close enough may not be good for as far as the combat forces are concerned, because when you are saying close enough, you have to have precision, and that precision is what is military operations all about. So I think that is where the challenge lies of converting the geographical coordinates into the navigational coordinates. I think that is where the big challenge which is there before us. As far as the technological domain is concerned, a big challenge which is there from the operational domain as well. We know what happened between the Gulf War 1991 and Libya 2011. I'm just covering the span of a decade, because this is a very important span which is there during which a lot of technological developments took place, particularly in the sphere of exploitation of space and exploitation of geoid. In 1991 Gulf War, we all know there was just one GPS device per company of the United States Armed Forces, just one. In Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom 2003, you had one per section, or a squad as they call it. So that is the level of permeation of these various technological devices which took place. But I think the key revolution took place in this domain was in Libya 2011. And this entirely also highlights the domination of the United States in this particular field. As Professor has already brought out, and many of us possibly already know, that the complete domination of the United States in this field was very evident when they carried out the operations in Libya 2011. United States went in for a covert intervention strategy without openly participating in the operations per se. At the same time, NATO forces, despite all their efficiency and efficacy, please pardon me for saying so, without the United States assistance, when I say NATO, is NATO less the United States, without the US assistance, they could not carry out this type of mission, because all the geo-intelligence resources were held by the United States per se. And I think that is where I think an important lesson is highlighted, or the important lesson of how important this field is. And also perhaps that many of us love the USA, many of us hate the USA. You may love it, USA, or hate it, but you cannot live without it. I think that's an important lesson, because they got all the technologies as far as concerned. So with that as a brief background, let me just, the aim would be just to provide a perspective of necessity and expansion of military potential through conversion of geo to navigational coordinates. I'll just cover in three parts. First, a perspective on conversion, just a brief perspective. Then you're expanding the military potential. How are you going to expand the military potential, and finally preparing for the future? And I hope, sir, in the next part 2 and 3, I may be able to throw some light on the issues which you have stated. Let's get a conversion perspective. We have all got very high-profile the specialists in this field, and so I don't have to really emphasize to you much on that. But let me just give you a very basic perspective. When we started in the Army 45 years back, many of us were operating this compass. I don't know if it's still there. It may be still there, or it may be there as an alternative. But this one, that was a time, the way of converting a geographical to a navigational coordinate is a manual, absolutely manual way, and it's not very accurate, as we all know. And that is where I think we had to shift to the geospatial structure. Today you got a lot of GPS devices, MapMyIndia, etc., etc. But when I see who are the people who are using the devices, it's only the younger generation, below 30. If you just carry out an overall survey, most of the people who are using today are below 30. I mean, that is the type of, the level of competent, level of technology pervasion which has happened. Is not pervaded to the people who are slightly in the older generation. But still now, we've got to aid. From the compass, we moved out to aid which is there available in the open domain and as much as the military. But from the military perspective, as far as conversion of the geographical to navigational coordinate system, from military perspective, my most important factor is how do I convert it into a killer object. And that killer object is what I've tried to depict here, a land attack cruise missile or a land attack ballistic missile, and how you're going to convert the geographical coordinates into the navigational coordinates in this one. And that is the key objective, I think, of the key challenge as far as convergence is concerned, because without this happening, your entire so-called net-enabled, etc., various tactical doctrines, etc., are not going to work unless we do that. And I think that is the main challenge which is being faced today. So I think the converting the geographical or the GPS coordinates of latitude, longitude, and height to a local navigation framework, which is very important. And as I'm going to focus on the missiles or the hit probability, kill probability weapon systems, here you find the inertial navigation systems which are coming very important, will continue, because you have to continuously calculate the dead reckoning, the position, orientation and velocity of a moving object without the need for external references. When you launch a missile, it's not good. The missile has to be launched on its own so that it reaches a target without possibly the need for external references, and that's what the fire and forget is all about. The fire and forget is not just for hitting a tank which is possibly 3,000, 4,000 meters ahead of you. When you're talking of fire and forget, we are talking of targets or possibly objectives you want to hit 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers or beyond, and that is where I think the challenge of conversion of the geographical to the navigational thing is actually there. You have a simple inertial navigation system. I mean, here we have tried to depict a simple inertial navigation system in a missile which is moving at the speed of the missile could be anything between 3 to 24 Mach. 3 Mach is what is possibly most of the cruise missiles are the speed at which they are traveling today, but where a ballistic missile using 24. You've got to have two channels, the direction and distance, and how you're going to have both the channels integrated, and how you're going to convert this entire geographically a system to a navigation one is what is a key challenge. And you don't have much space. All the space you got is this a small little device which you got. That's all the space you got in the missile. Where you got to, that is the converter, and that is where I think space again gives you a major challenge. Then you have to have large amounts of data. The process is very computationally intensive, but fortunately today we all know that we've got a whole lot of software which is available. I just tracked one of them, that is GPSoft. This is used MATLAB-based solutions for navigation, simulation, analysis, and data processing. All three are really important. You've got to have navigation simulation, you have to have analysis and data processing. If you do all these three, it's only then that the missile is going to hit the target within the circular error of probability which you are planning to have. Otherwise, you don't have the capability. But fortunately today, you have the software which is there, and the software is quite very powerful enough to analyze the data, to develop the algorithms and create model and applications so that you can really get the benefit of transforming the geo-coordinates into the navigational ones. And then you've got to have the language tools and the built-in math functions which enable the multiple approaches which are there, and that is again an important aspect as far as the software definition and software facility which is concerned. And without these, I think all this, the capability of your missile and capability of your forces to vectoring on to the target is going to be very, very limited. And that is the big challenge of from geo to nav conversion which is there. And I think we have achieved a lot as far as in this field to do that. Of course, there are certain aspects which do require attention. What is the speed of conversion? Now, there are a large number of coordinates. Your missile is traveling, ballistic missile, you got Agni 5, they're talking of Agni 6 or whatever, you're going to travel 5,000 odd kilometers, so large number of coordinates in just an infinitesimal period of time. It's got to have very accurate, though the accuracy may not be as important if the missile is of a large dimension nuclear weapon. In that case, possibly the circular error of probability is important, but not as important as possibly pinpoint accurate weapons which we require. Then you have interference which are natural and man-made. There are huge amount of interference, this unimaginable level of interference which is there, and that is where again will be a challenge for conversion. Manipulation. We know how the GPS can be manipulated. I don't have to explain it to this august audience. You have to have fault tolerance. You have to have open source architecture as well as encryption. Without encryption, I think all the factors which I talked about will be there. And of course, there's ownership. Who owns the entire program? The ownership factor is particularly important in the Indian context because most of, at present, we are dependent on software, we are dependent on various aspects which are owned by somebody else. It's very good to have the American technology, but the American technology, if it's owned by the Americans, is no good to you because you will not be able to use it when the push comes to shove or when the balloon goes up. But I think we have achieved a lot. It's not that we are far behind. We have achieved, for example, redundancy. As far as Agni 5 is concerned, you got a huge amount of redundancy that is not dependent on GPS. It's going to, once the Agni 5 takes off, the conversion in means of various gyro systems and the micro navigation systems, etc., is going to absolutely hit on the target without all the factors which I talked about earlier. And I think that gives us a high level of confidence. And the program is owned by us. I mean, that is very important as far as the conversion is concerned. Now coming on to the part 2, that is expanding the potential of military forces. How is this entire thing going to help us in expanding the potential of our military forces? All that any military man wants to know, whether he is a soldier, a sailor or an airman, an admiral or a general, where is my position? Of course, when the general is talking, he's talking of my position means the entire position of his domain. Where is my buddy's position and where is the enemy? If you are able to answer these 3 basic questions, I think our problem of converting the geographical to navigational coordinates gets much, much easier. And there are substantial advantages which are accrue of us of accurate navigation. All these have been listed out here. I don't have to explain it to you. Most of you would be knowing very clearly as to what are these advantages all about. But a few I think are very important, and first is the synergy. When I'm talking about synergy, it's not the synergy between what we talk normally. It's synergy between the sensor and the shooter. And the sensor and the shooter synergy is which provided by accurate navigation is something which is, I think, gives us an absolute capability of achieving our objective of being a net-enabled force or a net-centric force, whatever term you may use. But if you have the synergy between the sensor and the shooter and the entire command system, I think that is where the importance comes. And the next, of course, is the importance is today you need accurate navigation so that I can target a particular IP location of a computer which I have obtained. Because the first shot is not going to fire on the battlefield. The first shot is going to hit your computer. If you are going to operate in an operations room, the first shot is going to hit your computer, which is be manipulated by an enemy computer which is located maybe thousands of miles apart. Now, if I can get a fix of that and I can hit that particular spot, and that is where the accurate navigation I require, and that is a type of conversion factors which I require in the warfare in the future, which I am looking for, that I can send my missile and target the computer of the enemy who's fired the first bullet at me by knocking down the operational computer in my operations room. And that's what the future is going to be all about. It doesn't matter if I have got a huge amount of redundancy as far as, but if my main operational computer is knocked down, I think you had it. Of course, another advantage which is accurate navigation is close in support to forces on the ground or at sea, which is reduce hell of a lot of collateral damage. You find that as far as the Americans is concerned, going back to the Iraq War 2003, they operated in the urban terrain in Baghdad. They operated very freely, and they used to have a complete fix. Of course, they used multiple systems. It's not just basically related to GeoEnt. But today I think they have developed the systems where they can exclusively rely on the GeoEnt capabilities to absolutely get accurate fix in urban terrain, reduce the collateral damage and hit the target which you really want to hit. And that is, I think, a tremendous requirement which the Indian Armed Forces would be needing in times of combat. Because we are operating in various types of situations and various types of terrain, and we need accurate information so that collateral damage is reduced to the bare minimum. And that is, I think, the accurate navigation is what is going to be provided. If we are able to get that through our own sources, I think we'll have a big advantage. How does it address India's security challenges as far as this? I think first thing and foremost is it will facilitate not just preparation but shaping of strategic and operational space. We are not talking of just preparation of the intelligence preparation of the battlefield. We are talking of shaping the intelligence, shaping the operational battlefield of the future by using the geo-intelligence capabilities which are as accurate as can be provided today, and I hope it will be much more accurate as we go into future. It's going to give us tremendous capability of strategic deterrence. Today you got your Agni 5 missile, which is regarded as one of the most accurate missile, and the DRDO also claims that they are developing various ranges of missiles, and we have very sound reasons to believe, despite the military having its sort of problems with the DRDO, I think we have sound reasons to believe in the strategic space they have created a certain amount of capabilities, and it's all because they are able to convert this geographical coordinates of particular target 5,000, 6,000 kilometers away into a navigational coordinate which is not able to interfere by any external agency en route or right from the beginning. And that is what I think the strategic deterrence is what is being obtained here. The Navy is also developing a lot of these missiles, and I think, of course, enhancing the combat potential is one of the important aspects which is there. And what is happening is the compression of the war and combat cycle is totally getting compressed. As John referred to the OODA loop, I think this OODA loop is really, when you operate the OODA loop at a larger level at the war and combat level, I think the cycle is getting so compressed that you may have the war period or the combat period is going to be greatly reduced. Logistics, of course, no army marches without food or without this thing, and I think logistics is something which is going to be greatly facilitated by because you can able to identify at each stage where your logistics package is, and that is where I think the big advantage where you get is where your logistics package, if you are able to get the complete logistics picture sitting in your logistics whatever ops room or whatever you may call, and it's a common picture which is available to you as well as to your supply person, available to your recovery man, is available to your repair organization. I think is very important is this logistics. And of course the last one is, of course, it provides the de-escalation solutions to the challenges we are facing in the line of control or line of actual control in the real-time scenario, when you are facing so many of these situations of cross line of control firing or transgressions across the line of actual control, etc., etc. I think these are the issues. Once you have the accurate fix of where these things are happening and in what time frame they are happening, and with this accurate fix, you are able to present the picture to the other side. Look, this is what is there. So I mean, either we de-escalate or we go to the next stage and then use much more hard power as we would like to do or not do, as whatever the case may be. So how do we prepare for the future? If that is a scenario which you are, that is a facility which you are having, that is a capability which you are having, that is a capability which you are looking for, how do we prepare for the future? Because I really don't know whether how much we are prepared now, because I am not part of the system, but we will just see how we are going to prepare for the future. I think developing a navigational database is very important. I'm not talking about geographical database. You may have your maps, you may have, but all this has to be converted into geographical coordinates which are already fed in your various strategic and your operational systems. So the moment you give the word go, you are able to launch. And that is where I said the intelligence preparation of the battlefield in a strategic environment. This is, of course, conversion is just one leg in the multi-legged stool. You have to establish the standards for navigational coordinates based on specific purpose was the same are met. As the Admiral said, there are no common standards between one force and so you have to establish standards. Third is the building a navigation data repository. John has already identified in Afghanistan. So you have to have a navigation data repository of the complete area in which you are going to operate. And that data repository can be built up today because geographical coordinates and conversion is going on. And you have to match them already through simulation, and finally you have to review and update at a given frequency. So all this cycle can be done today. It can be done without any challenge there. But for all this, I think you've got to have this huge structure. I don't know where we are at present, and, because I have got no inputs on this, so I'll not try to, but we require this. Unless you have this overarching structure, you may feel that this is just another bureaucracy being created, but without this sort of a structure, where you synergize all this, and it's today, as per my reckoning, only the United States have it. I don't know if NATO has got any such a structure, which is as comprehensive as the United States, but we can build this structure because we got the expertise, we got the domain knowledge, we got the persons, and we got the technical expertise for this. I think we can go ahead with this. Thank you very much for the patient here. Thank you.